incredible job of staying together. Their unification was so tight that other than the GAMC line item veto, there wasn't even an attempt to override the governor. So what happens to those 47 House Republicans? Greg, let's start with you. Do they stay that tight this next session?
Just one correction, Danette. It will be the 23rd and the 24th that the new minority leader will be elected. This weekend is Republican Party chair, also an important election. You know, I think it's a pivotal time for House Republicans. I think it's a pivotal time for House Democrats as well. You know, I talked to Representative Seifert yesterday, and I asked him specifically about his decision to step down. And I said, well, you know, what was your rationale for that? And he was very clear. He said, I can't serve two masters. If I'm running for governor, I can't represent the caucus. And if I'm representing the caucus, I can't do justice to a gubernatorial campaign. And the next question I said is, you know, do you think that will have any influence on Speaker Kelleher? And he had no idea as to how that. And that's you know, that's an internal discussion that the DFL will have to have. The caucuses are unique creatures, as those of us who have sat in those meetings know. They'll move forward, that they'll adjust. There's tensions. There's, you know, good times and bad times. You know, I think things will be fine at the end, but it is pivotal for both caucuses, and we'll have to see how that shakes out in 2010.
Lori, what do you think?
I would just observe that caucus unity is harder to come by in election years, and we're certainly going to have a major one. So I think people's self-interest will begin to loom a little larger than caucus interest, and that could make for some different dynamic. On the other hand, the Republican caucus has been remarkable in the House in hanging together through the years.
Let's talk about a little bit what Greg mentioned. So when Marty Seifert said he's going to step down from the leadership position, there was immediately question, and even though the Speaker hasn't announced that she is running for governor, you know, certainly that those are the wins. And so does that put pressure on her? How is it, you know, so if Marty said, I have to focus on you know, the caucus somebody has to give the caucus 100% of their time. You can't have this. So what does that say about Margaret, and how does that play out for her?
Well, I get the sense that Margaret is going to probably enter the race fairly soon, in the next 6 to 8 weeks. I would look at, you know, Representative Winkler and others. I think Margaret has a broad base of support amongst her caucus, and it's not going to be a surprise that she's running for governor. I think that the idea, that she has other colleagues that are interested in running for governor becomes more the issue for Margaret than the serving two masters. Because I think when you're speaker, it's a little different than being a minority leader. And like Margaret, Marty has members in his caucus who would be running, and that's more likely to divide up a minority caucus. But, you know, it's going to be, next year is going to be a short, we think, session. And there's going to be more budget discussion than there usually would be in a second year of a biennium. So I think it's going to be contentious. It's all going to be caught up in the governor's race. And, you know, it's going to be a wild, wild ride. That's, I think, the best way you can describe it.
I think the pressure on the Speaker will be enormous. And you know, you need to have people running for higher office who have a current office, and there's that. But there's also the toxic fact that when you have people running for office who hold legislative leadership roles, it really screws up the legislative process. And I think perhaps the best example of that is the reason we don't have inflation in budgets is because then Senate Majority Leader Roger Moe, DFL, and then House Majority Leader Tim Pawlenty, Republican, cut the deal where they didn't want to have that because they didn't want to have to deal with that on the campaign trail. And we still have that. So I think going forward, given we have a cast of thousands running for governor, the pressure will become very intense on the Speaker of what's in the best interest for her and her caucus versus her campaign. By the way, a little shameless self-promotion, if you're having trouble keeping track of who's on first in the governor's race, hour by hour we update this chart at politicsminnesota.com, so go there. We got a guy almost 24/7 monitoring the tweets, and so we change it, and you'll see the time and the date stamp on it, and that's the definitive list of who's running.